Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over two different articles dealing with the subject of men, and particularly young men, making a mad rush to get vasectomies as a result of the big Supreme Court ruling a few weeks ago. And in the first article, guys, which is titled More Men Seeking Vasectomies After Supreme Court Overturns Roe v. Wade, this is going to take place, this article, in Florida. This one doctor who's in Tampa, Florida, and the mad rush of all these young guys lining up to get vasectomies. The doctor's office is booked for months. That's how busy it is. And the second article is going to break down more to different states and talk about how a lot of these different states like Texas, Florida, a few Ohio, a few other ones, same deal. And it's very interesting to see what's been happening ever since, obviously, that court ruling a few weeks ago. And in my opinion, guys out there that regularly date and hook up, for guys that are riding the clam carousel, if you will, you got to be careful. I tell you all the time, you got to wear protection because you've heard the stories about some of these gals that may want to baby trap a guy for whatever reason they do. And in my opinion, if you know without a shadow of a doubt, you are a grown-ass man and you know absolutely that you do not want to have kids one day, no way, no how, you are certain of this, and the fact that also that you're older, more experienced, and you also a guy who likes to get around, this is certainly something to consider. Because obviously with the changing of the laws, or at least in different states, something happens, well, I don't need to elaborate. But anyhow, guys, that'll be an interesting news story to go over. I've been doing a lot of personal stories lately, but this would be a great news article for the channel for helping guys out. So again, the title of the first one is More Men Seeking Vasectomies After Supreme Court Overturns Roe v. Wade. It says here, more men are seeking to get vasectomies as states move to ban or restrict that procedure, following the Supreme Court's ruling on Roe v. Wade. At one Florida clinic, a urologist told CBS News he found out that through the ruling, that through the sheer number of phone calls coming into his clinic that day. From his office near Tampa, Dr. Doug Stein calls patients who are under the age of 30 or do not have children to discuss whether they are 100% sure they want a vasectomy. He said he's making those calls more often. He's quoted as saying, "We generally see about 12% in our practice, men who are child-free, and then we generally see about 12% of men who are under the age of 30. But the number of both young men and child-free nearly doubled," he said. There you go. Isn't that interesting? He said the day of the ruling, he didn't find out by watching the news. He found out by being bombarded with phone calls, the guys calling to make appointments. The two-doctor practice performs 6 vasectomies an hour on most days. 6 an hour? Are these guys just lined up and it's just like snip, next, Good Lord. 50% of our calls are for women, really, who are making the arrangement, Stein said. So it's the wives. They don't want to have any more kids, so they're sending their husbands over there. Thomas, such and such, 27, said he and his girlfriend do not want children, so getting a vasectomy was always on his mind. He said, "I've always thought about this decision, and the Supreme Court did push me to finally do it," he told CBS News. The procedure, which blocks sperm from entering semen, is outpatient and takes about 10 minutes. Recovery from the procedure takes about 2 days, as opposed to female tubal ligation, however you pronounce that, which is riskier and it's much more invasive. He said the procedure is also about easing the burden on women who have had their constitutional right to that taken away, and for those who feel restrictions on birth control could come next. He says, "I feel for a lot of the men, especially for myself, and that is a way where they're trying to protect their girlfriends or try and protect their partners. They're trying to protect their future partners," he said. Yeah, well, they're also protecting themselves. In Houston, Jordan Castro's post about getting a vasectomy went viral. He said he did it last fall in the state of Texas, and they passed a law banning abortion after about 6 weeks of fertilization. "Really try to put yourself in the woman's shoes. Men should try to take a little responsibility," he said. Stein said he tells his patients that while vasectomies are reversible, not all reversals are successful. He said his clinic is booked through August, which is far in advance as ever been booked before. And I think his practice is going to be booked for a very, very long time, as are plenty others. Very interesting. Now, here's the second article. It's going to get a little more in depth and talk about the different states and break those things down. And this one's called, "Here are the states seeing high vasectomy consultations since the ban." It says this U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade almost a week ago. This article is obviously a couple weeks old. ending nearly 50 years of a landmark decision that gave women the federal right to have you-know-what. Now it's up to the states to decide whether to ban or restrict that procedure. I watch what I say here on YouTube, guys, because I'm being proactive here, because I kid you not, one day they'll find that word that I can't say that, and therefore flag or take down the video. So you all know what they're talking about here. The Supreme Court decision prompted mass protests nationwide on Friday as that ban rolled out across the country, affecting pregnant women seeking the procedure. Meanwhile, some states have announced plans to become sanctuaries, welcoming seekers from states with so-called trigger laws. There are 13 states with trigger laws that make that illegal or restricted because of the pre-Roe provisions in their statute books. South Dakota and Missouri are among those states that were the first to immediately enact the trigger laws. The other states include Arkansas, Idaho, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, and Wyoming. Since the court overturned Roe, many individuals have been actively pursuing or inquiring about different means of contraceptives, especially in states with trigger laws. On Friday night, a peak in searches of vasectomy was detected on Google Trends. Here are some of the states with spiking inquiries about vasectomies. Isn't that interesting? On Google, boom, right after the ruling, massive surge in searches for vasectomies. So the first state, Texas, says here, 2 doctors in Austin saw an increase in vasectomy and tubal ligation consultations less than 48 hours after the court decision was announced on Friday. It says here, we'll typically receive about 200 or so phone calls on a given Friday. Dr. Such and Such, founder of Austin Urology Institute, told the news outlet. Then we had over 400 calls to our office just this past Friday alone, with 70 occurring over just the 1 hour period after Roe was passed. We had a record number of bookings for requests for vasectomies. We've actually increased our schedule availability just to accommodate the current surge that we've seen. So there you go, just like Florida, surge in Texas. It only makes sense, it's going to be a surge everywhere. It says Texas has a trigger law that immediately makes that a felony statewide 30 days after the overturn of Roe. The state has already passed one of the nation's strictest anti-that measures last year that bans the procedure after 6 weeks of pregnancy. Meanwhile, Dr. Tyler Hancock, a gynecologist obstetrician at Women's Health Domain in Austin, said his clinic received more than 100 online requests from women interested in tubal ligation, which is a procedure getting tubes tied and is unable to be reversed. Almost all vasectomies can be reversed, according to the Mayo Clinic, but at a price some might find costly. He said, I understand that patients are anxious and scared, nervous, and we will do what we can. I think people are scared that contraceptives next, other human rights are next. That's a concern for a lot of people. And here's a question. Is it a possibility that vasectomies could be banned? One has to question. Next state, Florida. Says here, meanwhile, Dr. David Robbins, a urologist in North Miami, who performs hundreds of vasectomies every year, also noticed a spike in consultations for the procedure. He says where we do 400 to 500 a year, maybe between 8 to 16 or 20 a week, now all of a sudden, just yesterday, the volume was noticeable from the staff. He said, so I was in the operating room yesterday, and the staff called me up and said, wow, we got an incredible number of phone calls today, specifically people citing the change in law. Robbins said the demand has been overwhelming since Roe was overturned, to the extent that he is considering coming in on Saturday and just knocking out 10 or 12 vasectomies just to keep up with demand. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis in April signed a law banning that after 15 weeks of pregnancy. Before the law was passed, women were able to have that up until 24 weeks of pregnancy. In Missouri, a urologist with the Kansas City Urology Care said that the clinic has seen vasectomies consultations increase by up to 900% since Friday. 900%. Holy shit. Typically, it's about 3 over a weekend, and over the past weekend, it was 50 people. Henninger said, according to the station, it's not something that's a good temporary fix. It's not something I would plan to have done and then reversed in the future. Missouri was the first state to enact its trigger law banning all of that statewide, except in cases of medical emergency. Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmidt issued an opinion that would prohibit almost all of that in the state, with no exceptions for grape or the other word. In Ohio, in the state where that has been deemed illegal once a fetal heartbeat has been detected, the Cleveland Clinic said that they have seen a substantial rise in vasectomy requests in response to the court decision. The clinic said it has received about 90 scheduled requests since Friday, according to the station, even though it typically receives 3 to 4 requests per day. So you can see this pattern in all these states, and we got a few more I'm going to go through real quick. But given the article, the first one I did about Florida, that guy in Tampa, Florida, it's not like there was a huge surge in the beginning and it's tapered off. No, it's continued on. So guys, if this is something you have been thinking about for a while, obviously you better book your thing, because obviously they're getting full and you just never know what the future may bring. Now to Iowa. Another doctor, the medical director at a vasectomy clinic, told Local 5 News that his website, such and such, has seen a 250% increase in visitors since Friday. Over 20 people scheduled vasectomies over the weekend, when such and such typically sees an average of 40 procedures per month. Iowa does not have a trigger law. However, the state bans that after 20 weeks of pregnancy. Governor Kim Reynolds announced on Tuesday that the state plans to pursue further restrictions on those types of services. In Tennessee, Dr. Joseph Pizzona, a Nashville urologist, said that he has been seeing an influx of calls about vasectomies, according to a CBS affiliate, WTVF. He typically performs 50 to 60 vasectomies per month, and said he is ready to double the number of the procedures he performs as a result of the abortion ban. So it's everywhere. He's quoted as saying, "I was visiting with a patient who made the decision that he did not want to have any children, and he brought that up as one of the factors bringing him in," Dr. Pizzona said, according to WTVF. Tennessee, one of the states with a trigger law in place, has moved this week to ban that procedure after 6 weeks into a pregnancy, according to the Tennessean. So there you go, guys. 2 quick articles letting you know what's going on with that procedure with the vasectomies. So guys, as we have talked about in other videos, if this is something that you want done, that you thoroughly thought through, that's not just something you just decided to do over breakfast, that you really thought about this for a while, absolutely without a shadow of a doubt that you don't want children, you're obviously older, it's not like you're 18 and 1 day old, you're older, more mature, thought this through, then now there's a surge in this thing, and you obviously, if you want to book something, do it, because I'm not telling you to, let me make this clear, but if that's something you want to do and you've thought this through, they're book and sell, and you just never know. And the question is, could that get banned? Seriously. Could somebody make the argument that, well, by doing that, you all get the point. And on that basis, maybe you want to book it. I could be wrong here, but you never say never in life, guys. I've learned that by living on this planet long enough. My godfather, God rest his soul, he passed away a couple months ago, used to always say never, and he taught me from a young age. But that's what's going on now, and it's definitely interesting. And I remember back to I read another article, which I didn't cover because I only wanted to do 2, and it was definitely talking about more younger guys. It's not just married guys, it's also a sort of young guy saying, they're having their fun riding the clam carousel, if you will, and there's no way they're having kids. So a lot of young guys are doing this as well. So, all right, guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below, let me know what you think about this, and be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.